Marching to the beat of a different drummer. Marching to the beat of a different drummer. That axiom was coined by Henry David Thoreau in 1834 when he published his classic Walden. But the best we know about Hank Thoreau is that he never marched much further than from his lakeside cabin to his mama and sister's house to have his laundry done. And his relationship with drums is somewhat tenuous. But I have a new friend named Luke, and let me tell you something. He knows drums and he knows marching because he was the drum major of the Texas A&M Fighting Aggie Band. Woo! I was afraid of that. I met Luke 2 Mondays ago, and I was mesmerized by his spirit. You know, as soon as Luke graduated from that august university, he marched right off of that field where he was a celebrity and onto the fields of Brookwood Community in Brookshire, Texas. It's a far different place than Texas A&M. It is a community for 209 cognitively and physically challenged adults. It is a place where they fully live, where they work, and where they find immeasurable joy. And I emphasize the last, immeasurable joy. Luke felt called there right for an A&M. And of course, being an Aggie, he was assigned to work in the horticultural ministry. This is no small potatoes thing. 16 immense greenhouses. And Luke was able to sow the seed and grow beautiful poinsettias and bedding plants that were demanded, still are demanded, by the finest nurseries in the state of Texas. But what he loved the most, he said, was getting his hands dirty, shoulder to shoulder with those 209 folks. They're called citizens. Those who supposedly are disabled are called citizens at Brookwood Community. And Luke loved to get his hands dirty, working shoulder to shoulder to them. Of course, what do we do with everyone who excels in our businesses? You know, what do? We kick them upstairs, don't we? And so it was with Luke. He was kicked into the administration. There he also excelled. But there was one difference. Every day that work was over, he took off his tie, threw off his dress jacket, and he raced out to the fields again, and he got the 209 citizens and did cheer practice. I'm sorry, it's A&M, yell practice. And then he had a kazoo band that marched all over the quad. No one was surprised when Luke made his way into the president's office and said, I want a demotion. I want to go back and work with the people, with the citizens. And so he did. And so when I met him with a new friend of mine, Luke was what they call a home teacher. A home teacher because he and his new bride lived with 12 men with a range of cognitive and physical disabilities. And he looked at me and he said, they call me home teacher, but that is a bad definition. He says, I'm a home learner. Those 12 men have taught my wife and me more than we could ever teach them. Far more. He said, take Monday mornings, for instance. When all Americans are kind of dragging themselves out of bed, pulling on their clothes, slogging out the door. He said, not these 12. They're up, they're shaved, they have breakfast, they brush their teeth, and they're on their 3-wheeled bicycles, stampeding work. Stampeding work. They're so excited to have real work to do and real friends to do it with. Everywhere workplace we went to, and there were lots, the people were just replete with incredible joy. And then Luke paused again. He said, Pat, he said, everything worthwhile that my new wife and I have learned about living and loving has not come from college, nor has it come from all the marriage instruction we had. It's come from those 12 men. Everything worthwhile about living and loving. Whoa. Whoa. Well, speaking of newlyweds, we're doing so many weddings around here, we're competing with the Elvis Chapel in Las Vegas. Okay? Just telling you, you know. But one of the couples, Elizabeth and Chase, showed up for their marriage counseling, and they brought me a gift. They brought me a gift. Everybody always becoming love in a world full of setbacks and difficult people. Everybody always becoming love in a world full of setbacks and difficult people. I know that none of you encounter those difficult people, but anyway, in case you do. And I got this book. It looks pretty fruity, all these balloons on it. But I was trying to be nice, and in my morning devotions, I picked it up. Thought I would do a quick read. Then I got to page 4. And the author, Bob Goff, who was practiced law for 30 years, very successful, retired from that, and he has spent his entire life trying to safeguard and rescue the most vulnerable children in the world. Children in Kurdistan, children in Syria, and most of all, children in Uganda, where he has now been made an ambassador to the United States from Uganda. I don't know how that works. He's a citizen of the United States, but he is. If you go to his house in California, it's diplomatic property. Anyway, on page 4, Bob Goff made this one sentence, and it's changed my life. It's changed my life. We become in our life what we do with our love. We become in our life what we do with our love. Now, at first, I just thought that was kind of cute. Then I digested it. And then, within half a day, it derailed so much of what I have believed about the gospel message. So much. We become in our lives what we do with our love. I mean, take Jesus in the story that Brian just read. He's preaching to this big group of people on the plain. And he makes this statement. It won't surprise you. It sounds very Jesus-y. But I tell you, love your enemies. Do good. Lend, expecting nothing in return. But I tell you, love your enemies. Do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. There he goes again. Jesus is telling us to love those difficult people. You know, the people that castigate us. The people who injure us. The people who manipulate us. That's my favorite, by the way. And the people who despise us. Love those people for their sake. No. Love those people for your sake. Love those people for your sake. That's what Bob Goff has taught me, because he's read the Bible rightly and I have read it wrongly. Until we begin to love those who don't love us back, who we don't even like, we're only half people. We're only half people. We have arrested development because we become in our life what we do with our love. It's a whole different script, and I don't expect everybody in the world to be excited about it, but it's true. It's the Jesus way. And you are saying what I said to myself. This is craziness. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. What if we had a world with people going around loving their enemies and people that were, that treated them terribly? What kind of world is that? Oh, it'd be like this world. Let's see. It'd be like a world where the Son of God, who created everything that's been and everything that is and everything that will be, it would be like the Son of God. The person next to you whom you love, or the person next to you whom you don't know, it'd be like the Son of God who made the baby in your lap. It'd be like the Son of God who made the grandchild whom you adore. It'd be like the Son of God going to his execution for people who hated him. It'd be like the Son of God going to his execution for people who hated him. And that is the gospel story. We're very comfortable saying Jesus saves. And I believe that. I praise God that Jesus will stand in my place before the Father because I'm a mess. You happen to know that. Most of you even still like me, but I'm a mess. And I need Jesus to save me and stand in my place. But that's just part of the story, do you see? It's just part of the story. The other part is this. He saves us from a truncated life. Jesus saves us. He sets us free to love in ways that we thought were impossible because he can bring about the miracle in you and in me, and we can love the unlovable, and our life can be changed, and we can become in our lives what we do with our love. Do you see the power of the faith? That's it. That's it. And if we think this is new news, think again. Didn't start with Jesus. 15 centuries before Jesus, there was a guy named Joseph. And he was a pain. He was a strutting peacock. Okay? That was a strutting peacock, by the way. Okay, you guys try it, you know. He thought the world revolved around him. Everything he did was about himself. He was completely obsessed with himself. And his brothers, his 11 brothers, despised him for it. And they sold him into slavery only because they couldn't agree on how to kill him. So they sold him into slavery, and years went by. They didn't know. They didn't know what happened to him. In fact, they quit even thinking about him. That's kind of how it is with our sin. We kind of go along, you know, everything's fine, and then we just begin to forget what has gone on. And so Jacob, their father, says, "Listen, we're starving here. We're starving," and he sends he sends 10 of the 11 to Egypt to go get some supplies if they'll give him. And they show up in Egypt, and there's this powerful guy dressed in Egyptian raiment. I mean, big time. I mean, like big time. It's kind of like Charles Butt on steroids. You know, he has all the groceries, all right? And so there he is, and they come up to him asking if they can have just a little food. And the powerful man says, "Come closer. Come closer." And so the 10 do. And they look at him eye to eye, and suddenly, woo, the lights go on. And he says, "I'm Joseph. I'm the one you sold into slavery. And I know now that you're distressed and you're angry with yourselves because of what you have done. But don't be. Because God sent me before you to save life." God sent me before you to save life. And for all my life, I've thought that was mainly about saving Jacob's family, who's the seed of Israel. But now I know better. Joseph is sent ahead of them to save his own life. He's sent ahead so he can confront himself. and realize that as long as you're obsessed with yourself, you can't love anybody. Because there's only enough love in your universe for yourself. But Joseph is delivered from that by the power of God. And everything changes for him and his brothers and his daddy. In our life, what we do with our love. Now, if we think that's easy, well, you know it's not. Bob Goff says it's not. In fact, he just says straight out, he says, I find loving difficult people so hard that I've promised to follow Jesus only for 30 seconds at a time. So he said, so when I encounter one of those people who really despise me, I just smile and I love them for 30 seconds. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25. And then the counting becomes my heartbeat. And then the heartbeat becomes the drumbeat of an entirely different life.